Sniffing there.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Hello, welcome back to Unprecedented TV and me, Lembit Öpik, here on the station where we find the facts, kill the spin and tell it like it is all around the world. Never knowingly undersold on opinions nor facts. We don't mix the two up. But I do have to ask you to do one thing. Think for yourself. If you want to be told what to think, go to the mainstream. They'll tell you. But if you want to work out what the world's really like, then stay here. And not just that, a big thank you. I always say this, but I mean it, to the increasing numbers who are subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely the lifeblood of a station to see growth and expansion. And I want to thank you if you have already subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, then please go along. It'll take you 20 seconds. Subscribe to Unprecedented TV on YouTube. And that would be a very smart thing to do, because then you'll know a lot more about the shows which are coming up. One more thing. We have a vast array of programs. Some are entertainment. A lot of them are current affairs, but it's an ever expanding stable of presenters and shows. So you'll be most welcome to have a look at that. Almost 500 shows, perhaps more at the time of recording this one. And go to the older ones as well. They don't run out. They don't have a kind of shelf life. And you can compare some of the predictions we've made and see if they've turned out to be true. Well, this show is going to be full of predictions today. That's because it seems that at the time of broadcasting, the Labour Party is in deep trouble. They'd use stronger language, but it's a family show. We've got David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, defending change to the status of the Chagos Islands over near Mauritius. In short, we've given them back. When I say we, I mean the Labour Party. And not just that, just to make absolutely sure they're grateful for the return of the islands to Mauritius, we're also going to give them something like £30,000 million for the privilege. That's not the art of the deal, something Donald Trump's pretty good at. That's the art of messing things up again. A message to the whole world. If you don't like being in the British Commonwealth, why don't you tell us? And the Labour Party will help you leave and give you money to help you on your way. We've got all kinds of problems with the grooming gangs. They're really rape gangs. And once again, this is a fast-moving issue. But there have been resignations of rape victims from the actual process. They're not satisfied with what's going on, and there've been accusations and counter accusations that people are lying. And a minister lost her cool. We'll have a look at that later on. And all kinds of other things going on. Well, Britain squabbles, of course. It's completely on the sidelines when it comes to international affairs. Donald Trump's got fed up with Zelensky again, but apparently the coalition of the witless is still determined to help Zelensky have a disorderly retreat while leaving, tragically, the corpses of his countrymen and some women on the battlefields. The current estimate from people I rely on is that for every one Russian being killed, 18 Ukrainians go down. So in that context, what's going on with Labour? Why is it so incapable of making good decisions, in my opinion? And why are we repeatedly on the wrong side of history? Well, to discuss this and many other matters is our regular pundit. I think I'm going to call you a pundit today. It's Nick Buckley, MBE. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
That it? You don't sound happy. Cheer up, mate.
No, I'm trying.
I didn't mean to depress you with my introduction.
I'm trying to work out the best position in the smaller screen, so you sort of caught me off guard. And you did make me laugh with the intro when you said the coalition of the witless. That actually made me laugh.
Thank you very much. You're a tough audience, so if you're laughing, hopefully others will be chortling around the country, around the world. Just briefly, tell us why you've got an MBE.
2 decades of charity work, working with young people on the streets, getting homeless people off the streets. So charity work.
That's a pretty noble thing to to do it. I noticed that in your own description, which we'll come back on in a moment, you just put Nick Buckley. That's modest. If I was an MB, I'd tell everyone.
I have it in my email, not my email, my social media, just so people know they've got the right Nick Buckley. But who cares really? Who cares? I mean, it was lovely to get it. It was a wonderful day when I found out I was getting an MBE being awarded, from the country that I love, that I've tried to improve. And it was a wonderful experience to be awarded it. But there's more important things in life.
Who gave it to you, by the way, if I can ask?
It was during COVID, so there was no presentation. And after COVID, 2 years later, I got a letter saying, we're now going to try to do the backlog. And there's thousands of people on the backlog. Please bear with us. So I wrote back to them saying, put it in the post. I don't, let's get the numbers down. Put it in the post. I don't need to have it presented. So the local representative of the royal family, the Lord Lieutenants, I can't remember.
Yeah, it's Lord Lieutenant. That's what
the Lord Lieutenant came to my house and presented it to me.
That's really impressive. Modesty again. Well, don't be modest with your views. Quite a lot to talk about. I think the big picture here is the Labour Party is increasingly in a mess. They're meant to be governing the country, but instead they're showing they can't even govern themselves. All kinds of disputes, arguments, moaning, criticism. Let's start with a fairly big one, and that is the endless difficulty, I think, that this man here, Keir Starmer, seems to be having with keeping his party in order. This is actually a speech he's doing about digital ID. It's crazy in my view. I've demonstrated against it. He's claiming that digital ID, and they're not cards, it's just digital ID, will somehow stop the hordes of boat people coming across who throw their passports and papers in the sea from coming across. But there's a clue in what they're already doing, Nick. How on earth is some digital ID going to deter someone who's willing to come here illegally and willing to work here illegally, doing so illegally to an employer who's willing to employ them illegally? I don't get it.
There's 2 points to this. The first point is these governments have wanted digital ID for a long time now. Tony Blair was trying to get us to have ID cards 30 years ago. May not have been 30 years ago, maybe a bit less. Anyway, he wanted it. And Starmer knows digital ID will do nothing for the things they're talking about. But for the general public, it sounds fantastic. It sounds futuristic, and the normal person on the street might be thinking, do you know what? This might work. This might cut down crime. This might stop people getting boats, coming to the country, working like you say, working illegally. And I just think it's a distraction technique, which this government is doing more and more of. Distraction technique to push things further and further down the road in the hope something good happens to them along the way. It's all distraction.
Didn't please the people who went on the demonstration. I went on myself quite recently in London. These folks are pretty angry. This is on Oxford Street. There wasn't any violence, actually. That's Rose Diamond there in the foreground, the lady with black hair. She's heavily involved in the organization of it. And they marched all the way down to Downing Street. There were speeches there. And there was an effigy of Starmer with very rude pronouns, which I can't read out, but autoeroticism was suggested. So I won't use a stronger phrase there.
Yeah.
And these people were marching. And actually, I'm proud to say there's quite a few presenters from the station and staff from the station were there. They were welcome to be there. But digital ID doesn't seem to serve any useful purpose. But it can serve a very sinister one, because I think you and I both believe they need digital ID to carry out their world domination, their control of problem thinkers and speakers. They could use digital ID to stop you from buying food that they don't want you to eat, or making a journey they don't want you to make.
No, absolutely. If I'd had this conversation 10 years ago, I probably had a different opinion then. I think my opinion would have been 10 years ago, what's the harm? If you're not a criminal, what's the harm? This is going to make it more difficult to be a criminal. It won't stop it, but it'll make it more difficult. It'll save money on the admin throughout government. It will cut down on fraud. It'll be, there'll be lots of good things we can do for that. COVID changed my mind on lots of things. Living through COVID and what our so-called democratic government did to us and what they wanted to do even more of, but we stopped them. If we'd had digital ID, it would have been horrendous. Look what the Canadian government did to the truckers. Closed down all their bank accounts. If we give the government this power...
Did they actually do that?
In Canada, yes. Don't you remember that? The truckers that were campaigning and blocking streets, the government forced the banks in Canada to close all their accounts down.
Amazing.
So, how do you live with no bank account? And that's what this government might be an idiot, but would this government use these things as evil? I don't know. Would the next government use it for evil? I don't know. But eventually we'll get a government that will use this for evil to control us. You're buying far too much alcohol, Mr. Öpik. Therefore, with your credit cards now and bank cards, you're barred from buying alcohol. You've not paid, this happens in China, you've not paid your taxes on time. You now cannot buy a train ticket. 100,000 people in China every year are stopped from buying train tickets because they've not paid their taxes on time or the government money. I don't want the government, any government, to have this control over my life.
I have to say, you mentioned Canada, and Mark Carney fills me with dread. He used to be head of the Bank of England. He's a complete amateur when it comes to politics. I've been involved from my first full-time political job for 40 years. And there he goes, becomes head of the Canadian government. He's got no qualms about any of this. He thinks there's a climate crisis. I actually think the climate crisis question is an intelligence test. If a politician thinks that human beings are wrecking the climate, then they're not fit to be in politics. But he's been going on about it. And I've heard all kinds of horrendous things that they're doing to restrict your freedoms in Canada. I really used to like Canada. I even thought about moving there, but I wouldn't go there under Carney.
No, I mean, Canada's turning into a basket case, has been now for well over a decade. But for Carney himself personally, why did we have the governor of the Bank of England, who we didn't know this at the time, but who had political ambition? Yeah. Which means he buys into certain stuff, which means he has certain political ideologies. Anybody in that higher echelons of politics have ideologies about what they want. He should have been independent of all that, being a governor of the Bank of England. And he wasn't, because all these things seep into your choices. And we wonder why the Bank of England is failing. One of the reasons will be he led it for a long time.
Yeah, I've just not got much time for him. Incidentally, one of the other total ironies of the whole climate nonsense is that we import everything from China. And they've got these massive big ships which come in. And there's one of them. Huge ships, very sophisticated. Some of them are, I suppose, fairly green. But then they travel like 7,000 nautical miles with their crew on this one. It's stunning. And that's just extraordinary when you see that.
Yeah, but the answer to that really is that's not Canada's problem. That's not Canada's pollution. That's China's pollution. Yeah. As Canada, as the UK, we're amazing country. We're amazing people who care about the planet. We might buy stuff from China and have it sent over by boat, but that's all China's pollution. Yeah, that's the hypocrisy is stupid.
That's right. All those massive ships there, all the CO2 just floats back to China, I suppose. Yeah. It's just ridiculous, this whole thing. But once again, we've got Ed Miliband. I won't dwell on him. We've talked about him quite a lot recently on the station. Ed Miliband, who apparently, according to some of the other commentators, is tipped to be the most likely person to take over from Keir Starmer if and when he goes down. I actually want to see that. I actually want to see that for one simple reason. It just guarantees they're going to be absolutely stuffed at the next election. It was actually, it was a politician who said that to me. And he says that insider trading is to elect Ed Miliband as the leader.
Oh, broke. Oh, there, you're back. You're back. Yeah, I mean,
I was here all the time. You just couldn't handle the truth. Your face was a picture there. It was like, I thought, are you really that shocked about Ed Miliband taking over?
Ed Miliband is the likely candidate to take over from Keir Starmer if there was an internal election today. But don't forget, this isn't the public voting on this. This is the MPs selecting, and then it goes out to the party members, I believe. So, but inside that party, the far left, the ecos, the Islamists, they're looking for someone like him. They're not looking for Mr. Sensible. They're looking for Mr. Far Left, and he fits that. And he's only number one contender now because Angela Rayner at this moment has messed the chances up. But she'll be back this time next year. She'll be back as a political force within the party.
It's unlikely that this man is going to be contending. David Lammy on Mastermind, a show I did myself. I got 21 points actually overall. I came second. No, Lammy's score wasn't quite as high. I never ceased to celebrate the fact that he said that the king who came after Henry VIII was, do you know
Henry
what
the
he said?
Seventh.
Yeah, Henry VII, and that the blue cheese associated with port was Red Leicester. So I don't think he's going to be a contender. I can't wait to see him every time he has to stand in for Keir Starmer.
But there is a chance he could be Prime Minister, and this is the scenario. Keir Starmer, God forbid, drops dead. So automatically, because he is deputy, he's deputy Prime Minister, he will be interim Prime Minister while the party sorts themselves out and votes somebody in. As the interim Prime Minister, he'll have power, he'll have influence, he'll be able to start talking to the MPs about, pick me, you can have this, you can have that. I'm just a black man. If you don't vote for me, that means you're racist. He won't be the number one contender, but if he's already in position, he will be a contender.
Extraordinary. Yes. Well, all I'm saying is he's no mastermind, as you proved at the time. We'll take a break in a minute, but I just wanted to say, just so that we don't come back to it. So we've got the environmental nonsense going on. We've got internal bleeding, really, politically in the Labour Party at the moment. We've got an ever more shaky Prime Minister. Is there, I mean, maybe you haven't heard, but is there internal planning and playing? We know that the mayor of Manchester, whom you stood against, Andy Burnham, he clearly threw his hat in the ring. Was he premature?
I don't think he had a choice. I think he's been biding his time for 7 years up in Greater Manchester, waiting to be the king across the water. And he's waited and waited and waited. But Labour are falling so far in the polls. I think he decided it's now or never, because Labour's not going to win the next election. And if I don't make my move now, then there's never going to be another opportunity. So I think he had to give it a go, and it failed. But we will see.
I still think he's probably the biggest threat to everyone else, because he's probably the most competent candidate. But that's
why none of his rivals who are in Parliament actually want him back in Parliament, because he is the king across the water.
Well, we shall see. You're watching me, Lembit Öpik, here on Lembit Öpik Live on Unprecedented TV. Do subscribe if you like it. Go to YouTube. If you want to meet the station very quickly on YouTube, go to Unprecedented TV and put my name, Lembit. It'll come up straight away, top of your search engine. After the break, we're going to talk about some other problems facing Labour and indeed the country. But before that, Claire Dyer does an absolutely valiant job of raising stories which are increasingly now leading in the mainstream media too. They come to watch us, then they copy our ideas. Imitation is the best form of flattery. Watch this. a must-watch, really, if you want to see what's going on. And she has this great knack of taking local issues and highlighting national problems from them. That's Claire Dyer on Dire Consequences. With me, someone who's anything other than Dyer, Nick Buckley, MBE. We were talking about Labour's travails at the start. Another big problem, which is just going to be running for 100 years, is the giving away of the Chagos Islands. Beautiful looking place, never been there. Quite low-lying, got an airport on it somewhere. Why have we given it back?
Because this Labour government have bought into the woke agenda of us being a former colonial power who need to repay our sins of going around the world and taking law and order and technology and, you know, inventions and medicines. So they want to punish us for that. So they see these islands as a way of getting rid of them, and that's going to cleanse us slightly of our historical colonialism. It's a load of rubbish. And you said at the beginning that we're giving these back to Mauritius. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is Mauritius have never owned these islands.
Yeah, yes, I'm not 100% clear on the backstory, but I do know that these islands are in the Commonwealth, which basically means what we've said is, well, not us, I'm not owning this, what the Labour Party, with their wokery, has said, and by the way, David Miliband demanding reparations for the sins of the imperial past. They said, not only can you have these islands, but we're going to pay you to take them. What a deal. Hey, come and live in my house, Nick, and I'll pay you to do it. I mean, it's just ludicrous. They didn't even have a referendum. They didn't ask the people of Chagos what they wanted. From every angle, this is political insanity. And it's basically saying to the 60 or whatever members of the Commonwealth, if you don't like being in the Commonwealth anymore and you want to quit, we'll help you and we'll pay you. And if they're going to give £30 billion to this collection of islands, what would they give Australia? A few trillion? It's just insane. Unbelievable.
I think you hit one of the points on the head there. The people of these islands have not even been consulted about this. Now, if the people of these islands decided, do you know what, we want to break away from being connected to the UK, we want to go it alone, or we want to join Mauritius because we're quite close by and it makes sense, then I still wouldn't be for it, but I could understand it because people need to have some control over their own destiny. What we're doing with these islands and what we're doing with these people is we're saying, we don't want you. You're a hindrance for whatever reason. We don't want you. We're not going to listen to you. Your concerns are not our concerns. We're going to get rid of you like we do rubbish. It's very insulting for these people.
Yeah, it's tragic. And as I say, quite literally, they set a precedent. What about if Gibraltar says we want to leave as well? And the Falkland Islands, we want to join Argentina. Now we have to send Lamy down there with a bag full of reparations and some Argentinian phrase books. It's just unbelievable. But then maybe we shouldn't be surprised. One of my tweets this week, and actually one of our producers as well put it out, was the difference between artificial intelligence and David Lamy is that artificial intelligence is better than none at all. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I know it's a bit harsh, really, but let's not forget he was the guy who said that a man could grow a cervix. He said that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yeah. Britain's new Deputy Prime Minister, David Cervix Lamy.
Yeah.
How can he say stuff like that? If he doesn't know, he shouldn't talk.
Well, at the time, he thought it was true because someone told him. So he thought it was actually true. So he said it. But is that stupid to believe someone to say this sort of thing in the first place? And then going back to the Chagos Islands, let's talk about the most important thing about these islands. It's their position in the Indian Ocean. If there's a war with China or that part of the world, we've got a huge military base on there that the Americans use as well. That is so important if we're going to ever have a war with China and things like that down that side. And we're giving that away. I know we're going to rent it back, but we can rent it back. But if we don't own it, they can always kick us out at any time they want. It's crazy.
It's not just that, though. Well, it goes forward. Three things will happen. Number one, we'll lose. Number two, we won't be able to buy anything because they make everything. And number three, if you consider the change in the world, a lot of it will be against us and for China, because we haven't exactly done a great job with the current administration. Maybe the next government will be more internationally respected, but at the moment, who would come to Britain's aid? People out of pity, maybe. I'm not sure if we get a better deal than Zelensky is in terms of Trump. But that's not the only war that is going on. The war much closer to home. I'm sure, well, in fact, you're the person who told me about it, that at the time of the broadcast, Jess Phillips, who is a senior minister, lost her temper in the House of Commons because somebody had the audacity to criticize her and what she was doing. Just give us the introduction, then we'll watch a little clip of Jess Phillips losing it in Parliament.
Yeah, so Jess Phillips, Labour MP, she's the Minister for Safeguarding Women and Girls. So again, safeguarding women and girls. She's the one who's supposed to be launching a national inquiry, an investigation basically into the cover-up of the grooming gangs. We want them to look at MPs, councillors, police, council managers. And ever since they've announced it, 5 months ago, they don't even have a chair yet for the committee. They've not even published the aims and objectives of the investigation. But they've got some victims of the grooming gangs on board, and 3 of them have resigned over the last 48 hours. The whole thing is collapsing in front of her, and she was asked some questions in Parliament today, and she lost it.
Why is it collapsing? Why did these people resign?
I've heard statements of 2 of the former victims, and they basically were saying it's not going to deliver what I want it to deliver. It's a cover-up, it's a sham, it's failing. They're broadening what it should be looking into. Basically, they're muddying the water of this investigation, just like all the other reports into this, so it never gets to the truth. So them 3 resigned, and there was, I think it was a former judge who was in the top 2 of leading this investigation, and she's just taken her name out the hat now, going, I'm not getting involved in this.
That's incredible. Let's have a look at what Jess Phillips did. If you're watching this live, it happened really recently. But if you're watching it in the archive, by the time you watch this, there's even a chance that she'll have resigned. This isn't the kind of behaviour you'd expect from a Minister of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The cover-up continues. We have a Prime Minister who never wanted a national inquiry. We have a Minister who never wanted a national inquiry. And we have the Labour backbenchers who never wanted a national inquiry. So does the Minister agree with me that the victims of these horrific crimes will never get the justice they deserve as long as we have a Labour government in charge?
Minister.
It's quite impressive that you would stand up and say that after a grooming victim stood up and spoke on these benches. But, you know, I've learnt to expect it. When the honourable gentleman stands up and talks about cover-up, I understand that or maybe he's doing it for clicks, I don't know, but I understand that he thinks he's doing, you know, God's work in fighting this. The level of bad faith, the idea that it's easy to find a chair or easy to find people who want to step forward and take part in this process when it is mired in, I have to say, political point scoring like he just did. I have to say, I think that he should really question his own morality.
Sarah Russell.
What a ridiculous, childish outburst. Lee Anderson, the Reform MP, who was asking the question, is one of the most impressive in Parliament, I think. What did you make of what you saw there?
Lee Anderson had a great point. She voted against a national inquiry. The Labour Party voted against a national inquiry. So did the Prime Minister. And now they're having to do it anyway. We know what they want. They don't want a national inquiry. The Labour Party will never, ever investigate this to the level we want them to, because they know the answers. They know if they investigate this, what comes out potentially can destroy the Labour Party forever. When it comes out that local councillors were involved in the rapes, when it comes out that other local councillors covered it all up for votes, when it comes out that Labour MPs over many decades knew what was going on and kept quiet and turned a blind eye for votes, when all that comes out, when we find out that Labour Party quashed police investigations and told the police to look a different way and told councils to look a different way, when all this comes out, it's the end of the Labour Party. Hence why the Labour Party will never, ever investigate this.
Well, they might be forced to. Interesting you should say that. I feel we need to remind ourselves, something we're covering on other shows as well, that Sadiq Khan's in very hot water. He was accused of turning a blind eye to rape gangs in London, despite real credible evidence of horror assaults. It's said that he was told about them, but he refused to engage. That's a very bad look for the mayor.
It's predictable. Every city, every large town in this country has or had a problem with the grooming of poor white girls. Everywhere in the country has had or got this problem. And Sadiq Khan wants us to think that the biggest place in the country doesn't have a problem with the grooming of children. We know they have. He does, like all Labour politicians, he doesn't want to admit it, because if he admits it, he then has to investigate it. If he investigates it, it will then show that predominantly it's a Muslim problem and predominantly it's a Pakistani Muslim problem. And he cannot admit that because he only gets elected by the Muslim bloc vote. And if they turn against him, he's out of power. This is all politics. This is all, we've sacrificed our children on the altar of multiculturalism. And that's what all these Labour politicians have done. And some Tory politicians as well. Why do you think the Tories didn't investigate this when they were in power 14 years, knowing it will damage Labour? Why didn't they do it? Because they know at a much lower level, they're damaged by this as well.
It's a horrendous situation. I was appalled at the extent to which all the main parties are mired in these exploitative sexual situations, including the Lib Dems. They weren't immune to it. We shall see what happens there. But I don't think the country is going to accept the bleating excuses of Labour. This is a dark stain on this country. And there are many who say literally hundreds of thousands of girls in particular were ruined by this systematic organized raping. I remember when I first heard about it, actually, I was a member of parliament in Montgomeryshire in Wales. And I heard that a girl had really suffered at the hands of this sort of organized activity. That was 20 years ago. I had no idea that this was something which was pervasive. It was endemic. It was actually a real pandemic of sexual deviancy. Well, we shall see what happens on that one. One other subject I want to cover before we finish, and this is one which could almost be out of date even while we're talking, and that is the difficulty that Prince Andrew finds himself in, if indeed he still is a prince when viewers are watching this, because he's got himself into such hot water again due to exploitative sexual practices, or specifically allegations that he was involved in them. I think under very strange circumstances, his accuser, Virginia Giuffre, died. We keep being told that that woman in the picture committed suicide, even though she said, if I die, it's not suicide. That's actually what was quite clearly stated by her before her death. And then she nearly died, and then got better, and then she died. Completely died. I'm wondering if there's any long-term damage to the royal family. As I say, there's no point going on a blow-by-blow account, because this is such a fast-moving story. Because of Giuffre's posthumous biography, Nobody's Girl, just published, that things could have changed already. But I just don't understand why Prince Andrew thought he was going to get away with all this. Maybe because he has for 20 years.
Yeah. And don't forget, he's a prince. You know, he's in line, he is in the line to be King of England if the things happen to his relatives. And he's been raised in that bubble where he's a Prince of England, Prince of, Great Britain. Several things that get me with this. First of all, he was friends with Epstein, who turned out to be not only a horrendous paedophile, but a trafficker as well. up to Epstein being arrested, you can't blame Prince Andrew for being friends with him, because you can't blame someone for who they're friends with when they don't know. But once he was arrested for paedophilia and for trafficking, that should have been the end of the friendship, but it wasn't. If I find out tomorrow, Lembit, that you're involved in that, I know you're not, but I wouldn't come on your show again. That would be the end of our friendship. That's what he should have done with Epstein, but he didn't. He stayed friends with him. He stayed at his house. Fergie was friends with him. And it's like the friendship stayed. That for me is a big, huge black mark. Then he had that interview with that reporter. I forgot who the reporter was now.
Emily Maitlis.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And the things he said there, you could see he has no concepts of reality. He has no concepts of what people will think about him when he answered those questions. And it's a bit like when Michael Jackson said, "Yes, I let little boys sleep in my bed." It's like, Michael, what are you talking about? And he did exactly the same sort of thing where he had no concept. He should be, he's now dropped as a royal. He should be dropped as a royal. He probably should have his title stripped from him, because he's nothing but an embarrassment now. And if he disappears from public life, that could be the end of it. And the royal family probably won't be damaged any more than they are. But if more things keep coming out, the Queen didn't want to do this to him, because I believe he was the Queen's favourite son. The Queen should have got rid of him, many years ago.
Very difficult to say that to a mother, though.
Yeah, of course.
Very difficult to say that to a mother.
Of course it is, but she was more than a mother. I'm not saying she shouldn't have loved him and she shouldn't have had him, and seen him. Of course she should have done. I'm saying, as the monarch, with this country's reputation, she should have axed him, but she didn't. But maybe that's happening now.
I doubt whether he'll be on Mastermind either. The still here we see is of the Emily Maitlis interview with Prince Andrew, which apparently he thought had gone rather well. He claimed he didn't sweat. Yes. The deceased, that's Giuffre, was apparently paid $15,000 for providing sexual services to Prince Andrew. I think the problem I've got with this is that he basically has acquitted himself so badly, and I wonder, is there any way that he could have handled it better? If he did do those things, and they are still allegations, though interestingly, he's spent a reported $12 million paying Giuffre off rather than taking it to court. But if he did do those things, was there a way that he could have handled it better? I'm not sure.
Oh, absolutely. He should have cut his friendship off when Epstein was arrested for paedophilia. How a royal wasn't forced to end that friendship. The Queen must have known about it. The royal security, everyone knew he was friends with him, staying at his house. That should be, if he cut that friendship then, he could have said, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know any of this. But once I found out he wasn't the man I thought he was, that's unacceptable, and I'm not friends with that man anymore.
Well, he did actually. In fact, we do know that he did successfully draw a line under it when he said he'd done those things. His problem is he didn't. In fact, he carried on his friendship and even said, we'll play again soon or something like that, indicating the full intention of seeing Epstein again. So lots of troubles there. Is there any reason to be cheerful in Britain at the moment?
No, not when we're talking about child sex exploitation, especially the way we're talking about it now. It's the royal family, 50 years of the Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs. We're seeing it every day. We're seeing children. There was a 10-year-old girl raped by a migrant in Dublin yesterday. And we're looking what's happening in our country and our neighbours with our children. We've got girls cutting their breasts off. We've got boys thinking they're girls. And what we're doing to our children through poor mental health, through the rubbish we're teaching them, through the obesity epidemic we've got with young people. Young people now are opting out of life and not getting jobs when they leave school and just living off the parent. Everything we're doing is killing our young people. And a nation can't survive the way we're treating our young people.
Well, on that cheery note, Thanks for coming on, Nick. And the reality has to be discussed, and that's what we do here. Hope I haven't depressed you too much. If you are unhappy, think about getting involved in politics. I'm not going to prescribe who with or how, but you can moan, you can get depressed, or you can stand up to be counted. We're all about that here on Unprecedented TV, to give a voice to the voiceless and talk about things other people may not want to. We hope you like the service. That's it for me from the show today. I'm Lembit Öpik on Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV. Please don't forget to subscribe. It'll only take you 20 seconds. Go to Unprecedented TV, put the word Lembit in as well, Lembit. You'll get there straight away. And please, it really helps us a lot and doesn't cost you anything. Have a good day and don't let it get you down. Do something about it.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.